The Unfiltered by Jade.
Jade. Welcome to The Unfiltered by Jade, where we educate, empower, and entertain. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, download, donate, and make everybody know about this.
Beats by RB Records.
Shopping assistance, your style, your budget. Our services include online and local shopping for individuals and businesses, personal shopping, purchasing of company and office supplies, importing and exporting small packages across Jamaica and worldwide, and helping you find unique gifts and items for all events and occasions. Contact us at 876-919-5195 or shoppingassistance2015@gmail.com. Shopping Assistance, your style, your budget.
Welcome to The Unfiltered by Jade. Today we have with us here RC Hand, and we're here to speak about travel culture, and we're here to talk a little bit about his books. Before we even go into it, I'm going to ask him to introduce himself, tell us a little bit about who he is. Hi RC, how are you?
Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, I'm a 71-year-old retired contractor. I worked under my father for many years and learned the trades. And when he retired, I took over our plastering and tile business and ran that for 38 years.
My.
I've been retired for 11 years and I'm 71 years old, but very active. I play tennis every day and handball once a week also.
Nice. And you do a lot of traveling.
Yes, my wife's family live in London. Her father was born there, so half of her family is still there. And my family, we were self-employed, so we never had time to travel really. And when my wife and I got married, she brought me into the world of travel.
That's nice. Thank God for the wife.
That's right.
Okay, so what prompted you to start traveling? I know you said when you got married, your wife introduced you to that word, but what is it that excited you about traveling?
Well, I love history. And I grew up in a multicultural school and a multicultural restaurant. My parents had a restaurant for many years as a child. I grew up in a Hispanic neighborhood. I speak passing Spanish. I can survive in any country in Latin America. I can get a lawyer, a beer, and something to eat in Spanish. So
That's
I
enough.
don't drink beer, but I can get a soda anyway. So yeah, we love to learn about culture. My wife lived in Italy for a year when she was in the U.S. Navy, and she traveled to England often. And when we got married, we went to England for our honeymoon and to meet her family. And so part of our plan and our life plan before we got married, we sat down and tried to create a life plan. And part of that was to travel. And we traveled throughout our marriage. We've been married 39 years.
Nice.
And I've traveled to 83 countries with her over those 39 years.
Mm-hmm. I love that. For persons out there who are looking to travel and want to do this traveling, is it expensive? How do we minimize the expense of traveling?
Well, we always like to go on group tours. We meet a lot of very interesting people. We have a docent that teaches us about what we're looking at. It does little good to look at something and not know what it is. So we like to go on guided tours in groups of maybe 14 or less. We've gone on groups bigger than that when we were less fortunate money-wise.
Right.
And of course, as we've gotten older, we've become a little more wealthy in our old age and can travel in a smaller group.
Right.
But I'm a sociable person, and the more the merrier as far as I'm concerned.
The more the merrier. What are some of the myths associated with some of the countries that you have visited?
Well, I've never come across any issues as far as safety or things like that. I grew up in a very unsafe environment, so the rest of the world seems pretty safe to me.
Okay.
But we've been to North Korea, which
Okay.
not a lot of people don't go to North Korea. We went there the week of the Olympics in China, and we spent 5 days in North Korea, 4 days in South Korea, and saw some interesting sights. It's pretty quiet in North Korea, not a lot of traffic. Their subway and train systems are minimal at best, and the economy on the river is at a standstill. There wasn't much going on there when we were there at that time. But we wanted to see that. We've been to many of the communist countries. We wanted to see how the communists have run things for the last 100 years or so, and it's been interesting. They are not nearly as successful and good at doing things as some people say.
Okay.
Healthcare being one of those. We've
Mm.
been to Cuba, we've been to Russia, North Korea, um, Eastern Europe. So we've seen a lot of those type of areas, and we've been all over the South America. Been to 6 countries in Africa, Australia, all through Europe, Scandinavia. So yes, it's we've seen a lot of very interesting things and learned a lot about many cultures.
Right, but when it is that you're here, so well, I don't know if you have heard, but sometimes we see that some places they are not, as I say, safe, or some places are not. How should I say this? Modernized. Do you see that when you travel? Because there are people who want to experience different countries, different places, but they are afraid that when they go there, they're not able to relate to people. Especially you speak, you can help yourself around. Some people can't help themselves around speaking to get around. And some people say it's difficult. So do you find some of these places more difficult than what you're used to?
Perhaps, but not much. And we live in Disneyland here in America. The rest of the world is nothing compared to the United States or Europe.
True.
So once you leave the first world, you get to the real world.
I
And the
love
real
that.
world is very interesting. I've been to Mongolia, uh, Nepal, and India. I've been to India 3 times. Some people just, I don't think you like India. You either love it or you hate it. And
Mm.
India is a beautiful, wonderful place. It's very different. The people are very friendly. A lot of them speak English. It's a totally foreign culture, as is China and or Japan. But that's why you travel. If we were going to a place that was exactly like home, why would we
It would have
bother
made
to
sense
go?
on true. Very, very true. So with that, what are some of the vast differences in cultures and what are some of the commonalities that you find?
Well, I think we all have more in common than we don't.
Hmm.
Uh, I was surprised. We went to Greece for the Olympics, and I think of the Greeks as being very warm and friendly, and they are. But when you get off a bus, when we are on our tour buses, the Greek drivers never touched the women's elbow to help them off the bus. I was surprised at that, but perhaps they find that to be imposing on someone's personal space. I'm not sure, but I
Hmm.
immediately assumed that they would, in fact, help the ladies down off the steps. But maybe part of their culture is not to touch foreign females.
True.
Uh, in Japan, people are very outgoing and speak English well and write very well, but they're a little bit shy about speaking English, but they're always more than happy to help. I have friends that live there, and we've traveled with written instructions, and everyone's tried to help us get around when we were lost or a bit confused.
Right.
I wouldn't let any stories that you've heard about any place keep you from going there.
Hmm. Okay. That's yeah. Okay. We get that because sometimes you hear stories, but it's not really true.
The odds are very low that you're going to run into problems. The media, of course, makes money by selling scary stories.
Yeah, they amplify things.
Of
They
course.
amplify things. How has the pandemic though refined traveling for you?
Oh, we've we just came back from Spain and Portugal. We went to London twice last year. We're going back for another wedding shortly. We're going off to Jordan and Egypt in a few months. And we're going to Rwanda in October to see the mountain gorillas. So
Hmm.
we're making up for that. Though we lost
You're
several.
making up.
Well, we had several trips planned during before the pandemic hit. We had a cruise to Japan. We had a road trip in America. We had another trip to Africa, and so we had already paid for those trips and were prepared to go. And then we lost those because of COVID,
Right.
and so we had to reboot. And my wife, who went to school to be a travel agent and is very adept at planning trips, she sat down and planned some more trips for us. She goes through her catalogs and shows me something interesting, and I am always more than willing to go and go with her to see these things. We had planned on going to Iran in the next couple of months, but things are a little dicey there. I've talked
Right.
to people over LinkedIn, and many of them suggest that we not come right now. So we've decided to go to Egypt and Jordan. Egypt, we tried to get to 3 times before, and there's always been some kind of political issue. My wife has been to Jordan before, so this won't be the first time for her to go to Jordan. But we're looking forward to this trip to Jordan and Egypt coming up shortly.
That sounds very exciting. I think I believe that persons, even few times in their lifetime, should travel to get to know different places.
Absolutely,
Because staying stagnant where you are, you can't. It's different cultures. It's very interesting. You just don't want to know just what you're used to.
absolutely.
Can you recommend some places that we should travel to and cultures that we should look forward to?
Oh, I we loved Nepal. That was a life-changing experience. We were there before the king was assassinated. We did a 3-week trek up into the Annapurna Mountains. And at that time, we were much younger and we could walk for miles and miles up in the mountains. We got up to
Hmm.
11,000 feet and we
Nice.
stayed in some great campgrounds and tents. We had Sherpas with us carrying our gear. And that's a lovely, interesting place to go to. And during holy days, especially in holy days in India and Nepal and Bhutan, we've been to Bhutan also. Uh,
Hmm.
they have a celebration of the battle between the fire and the water gods, and everybody throws water paint on each other, which is always fun. And it's interesting. I play handball with a microbiologist who was talking with me the other day about people speaking different languages. Why do we speak different languages? And if that isn't something to investigate, I don't know what is. And people having different accents, traveling just to learn about different languages and people's accents is reason enough.
Yes, I
You
agree
know,
with that.
why do you have a different accent than I? How did that happen? Historically, there's reasons for that, and it's interesting and I think probably important to some degree also.
I believe so too, because our accent even determines where we're from, and they will know the history of that. So that's interesting.
Now, I don't have an accent, but you do apparently.
I do. So I was born in Nigeria, and I
Oh, really?
migrated and I migrated to Jamaica, and now I'm living in the US.
Oh, so you were younger than 11 when you went to Jamaica, I think.
Yes, I was. That's why.
Well, because if you leave a country before you're 11, you will learn the new accent of the place you come to.
Tell us about your books, because you have written a number of books.
I write historical fiction, and I was self-employed, so I have a viewpoint about how one makes their way through life. My parents were self-employed. We never had any money, but we were self-employed,
Mm-hmm.
and it gives you a real sense of freedom.
Yes.
I'm retired, but I know tomorrow if I needed to get a job, I could go out and start my business over again for $1,000. I'm physically able to do it. My work was physically demanding, and it kept me in shape all those years that I worked. But having had the opportunity to work in probably 100,000 homes and apartments, I've met many, many people and learned something from all of them. And the important thing about being self-employed is that you know that your future is in your hands. I
True.
cannot be stopped unless I stop myself.
That's true. Nice. So can you give us some of the titles of the book so if persons want to look for them?
Well, my website is cowboyproductions52.com. I
Hmm.
have a travel blog there with photos and stories about our travels. The Adventures of the Smith Family is an 18th century English adventure romance tale about a young boy who has a stroke of good luck and discovers that he can, in fact, make his way and become wealthy through hard work and a little bit of luck. I have a couple of detective novels on Amazon also. One of them is called Atlanta,
Hmm.
another is called Judgment Day. I have a really great spy novel called Grandpa Ernie's Secrets that takes place in Italy. And because I've traveled there and done some research, The story unfolds in America, but quickly goes to Italy, and we get to travel on different roads and see different historical sites that are involved in the storyline. And so I like to bring in these places I've been into my stories. My story, Sailing Away, is a follow up to The Adventures of the Smith Family, and it's a trip from London through the Mediterranean Sea, down the coast of Africa to South Africa, and back up. And we discuss the issues of slavery and the countries along the west coast of Africa. We talk about them before they were countries and how they were named and who discovered them, uh, and so on and so forth. So I try to learn something in my research and put it in my book so that other people will learn interesting facts while being entertained.
Hmm. Sounds good. And the greatest part of the books that you write is that not, you're not just writing them just to write them, you're writing them from experience of being in these places.
That's right.
So,
I've been here, so I've been self-employed. So I write this story about a young serf in England who has the opportunity to be self-employed,
right,
and I've been to England and then again in Italy and in all the countries that I've traveled to. I've included some of those in my stories. Uh,
right.
and I think it helps to have gone there to get
Yes,
a
yes,
sense of that landscape and the people and a sense of the culture,
yes.
uh, rather than just writing off the top of your head
Right, right.
and so forth.
So you can give more in depth to things. So that's good. Okay, RC, I want you to tell persons about, encourage people to travel, encourage people and say why they need to travel and the benefits of it, how it helps us, how it shapes us, how it helps us to be better, because traveling does help us to be better. So I want you to just encourage persons out there to travel and tell them where to find you.
Well, you will appreciate wherever you come from much more after you have traveled and
Hmm.
seen how other people live and try to make their way through life. There are places that are better than where you live, and there are places that are more difficult where you live, that you'll travel to if you're fortunate to take that step. And you'll learn from every person that you meet. Just by looking out the window of the bus, you're going to see the different geography, and you're going to experience the weather, and you're going to use the telephone and the plumbing and eat in different restaurants and have different kinds of food. And none of these things would have been possible to understand without traveling. And how can one go through life without experiencing those things? It's that you will have a very narrow view because you won't have experienced these important differences. And that alone will help you understand why people are different, why they think differently. Do they struggle harder for fresh water? Do they struggle harder for transportation? All of those things makes a difference on how people view the world and what they look for in a way to improve their world.
Nice. Very well said. Where can we find you?
My website is cowboyproductions52.com. I'm on Facebook at RC Hand and on Instagram at RC Hand. I do live storytelling at the Long Beach Searches for the Greatest Storyteller events, and those videos are on Instagram and my Facebook page. I'm trying to grow my reading audience all the time. It was difficult through COVID. And
Mm-hmm.
so I use my website to do that. I have the first chapter of each of my novels on my website. I have readers coming from all over the world. I've been to the Five Stands, which is a wonderful place to go, clean as a whistle, and lovely people, beautiful countryside. Um, and it may not be on the top list of places to go on your list, but you should go and experience that. Any place you get a chance to go, do it.
Do it. Thank you so much, RC. Thank you so much for giving us gems and insights on traveling and the different cultures out there and what we're to experience and where to open up our minds just to experience these cultures. Because as I said, we believe in a narrow life. If it is that we don't try to have that even with our families. That's very important. So thank you so much again. And thank you to our listeners for continuing to listen to the Unfiltered by Jade. And we'll be back next week, Tuesday. Thank you.